Pandora's Flight of Passage is quite possibly the most successful motion simulator ride in Disney's history, featuring a one-of-a-kind ride system, high-resolution 3D animation, and one of the most elaborate queues Disney has ever made. As guests make their way deep into the remains of an RDA mining facility, they are met with a lab now used to research ways to restore the Na'vi population. The ride lets guests hop aboard a link chair to connect with a banshee and take flight on a jaw-dropping and visually stunning adventure. Flight of Passage is one of the most elaborate rides Disney has ever created and was part of a $500 million investment in Disney's Animal Kingdom. This video does feature a lot of technical spoilers, so this is your warning if you're still looking to ride spoiler-free. However, if you love theme park technology and want to see how they pull it off, then you're in the right place. Make sure to also stick around until the very end for a special contest and additional secrets about the ride. In this video, we'll take a look at the technology of the ride, seat design, special effects, exclusive secrets, and more, as well as the history of the ride. So sit back, relax, or stand in a queue line, which you're probably already doing, because this is how Avatar Flight of Passage works. Flight of Passage, being the most anticipated ride in the new Pandora world of Avatar, was constructed at Disney's Animal Kingdom and opened with the land on May 27, 2017. During the planning phase of Pandora, the world of Avatar, Flight of Passage was actually designed to be a supporting attraction to a much larger e-ticket roller coaster that was eventually shelved, shifting the e-ticket ride status to Flight of Passage. Preparation for the land the ride sits on began with the closure and demolition of Camp Mickey and Minnie, plus the relocation of the Festival of the Lion King across the park. The outside portion of Pandora is a section of the land that took up this space, while both attractions sit on what was an expansion pad of grass. Both Flight of Passage and the slow-moving water ride Na'vi River Journey actually occupy the same show building, with some of Na'vi River Journey existing below the queue of Flight of Passage. Flight of Passage is a 3D motion simulator with an elaborate queue. However, the motion simulator mechanics are unlike anything that had been seen in theme parks before. Riders make their way through the jungle and hidden caves of Pandora, leading to the Ace Lab, where multiple effects and an impressive animatronic set up the environment for the ride and immerse them in this Rite of Passage based experience. These are how those effects work. One of the first effects guests will pass in the standby queue is a floating water effect. This is actually a very simple illusion that has been sold in magic or illusion shops for years. As you might have guessed, the water is not actually levitating or floating, but the water is traveling through and out of a tube which also passes over a tone generator, a speaker. The tone that is generated causes the water to undulate at a fixed frequency. With the use of LED light strobes that can turn on and off instantly, the light strobes at the same frequency or rate, lighting up the water wave only when they're in the same position as the wave before it, creating this floating illusion. Touching the floating water will prove that the waves are not levitating. Changing the frequency of either the water waves or the strobe will make the droplets appear to be traveling upward or downward. Another set of illusions continues in the queue in the form of the cleaning organism tanks. Here, guests are shown 3 tanks of alien-like organisms as they react to their environment. These black blobs move around a small tank with a mirror made to make the tank look larger. The blobs are, in reality, a liquid called a ferrofluid. These are fluids where microscopic pieces of a ferrous metal are suspended in oil or water. Using an electromagnet on an Etch-a-Sketch style mechanism, the electromagnet is turned on and off to manipulate the blob from behind the glass to make it appear alive. In other effects around the lab, iron filings are used, and there can also be a screen on the surface to make it seem like the blob is eating food. One of the more visually appealing effects in the queue is the wind turbulence experiment tube, where small foam particles appear to move and dance within the tube. This effect is called a 𝗠𝗘𝗗𝗜𝗔 and is actually one of the more true-to-reality effects in the queue. This 𝗠𝗘𝗗𝗜𝗔 is often used in physics classes to demonstrate the effect of sound waves on these foam particles, and at each end of the tube is a large speaker. When used at various frequencies, the foam particles move and stand up in mountain-like forms, where the nodes and antinodes of each sound wave exist. In short, the effect is using a low hertz sound to manipulate the particles. Finally, the most notable item in the queue for Flight of Passage is the floating avatar animatronic. This animatronic is indeed actually floating in water, but to mitigate issues, this animatronic is not the traditional animatronic that Disney has used in the past. While this animatronic does contain a body frame and the usual rubber latex skin, it does not use electronics. The avatar does have a standard frame, but instead of electric actuators or even pneumatic pistons, the avatar uses a pneumatic airbag to move the limbs of the avatar. This kind of actuation is informally known as pneubotics. The center of the body is weighted specifically to float in the water, but not to sink or rise. Meanwhile, the umbilical cord that is attached to the avatar conceals the air lines that are then routed to the various joints and also slightly supports the animatronic. This electronic-free system of airbags in the joints of the avatar animatronic makes it far more reliable and easy to maintain than having electronics or pneumatics that could corrode or stop functioning due to water ingress. In the event the animatronic needs maintenance, a room is located just behind the avatar where it can be rolled in, drained, and maintained. When you finally reach the hallways, you are directed to either the right or left hallway. The right hallway serves the first floor of the 3-story theater. The left hallway features double the amount of doors and serves both the middle and top floor. Once directed, you'll enter the hallway to one of the 4 theaters. After a few pre-shows meant to simply group riders, entertain them, and also relay the storyline of the ride, guests are herded into the main theater room, where they are seated each at a link chair, which is a motorcycle-style straddle seat. Much like the seats of a Zamperla disco, each seat features a back restraint that flips up from behind. In front of riders is a conceal cover that flips away during the ride and a screen to add to the sci-fi theme. Costing about $50,000 each, not only does the seat feature a screen and restraint, but each seat is mounted on a tilt motion base that tilts riders left and right during the ride. Further in front of riders are 3 tubes for 4D effects during the ride, including air, water, and various scents that are all pumped in from floor 2 and are branched out to each seat. It is now the moment of truth, as riders are locked in and ready to experience Flight of Passage. Here are some of the secrets of the ride that lie within the screen and film itself. Number 1. The screen that the ride video is projected on is actually transparent, and there are areas behind them where cast members can watch guests from behind the screen. 2. WDW and Lightstorm are responsible for the video, and the latter company was actually created by James Cameron himself, and the whole video took over 2 years to create and millions of dollars alone. And lastly, in each theater are 8 4K ultra-bright projectors. Therefore, due to the high heat they produce, the projection rooms are kept at nearly freezing. Some guests may not have realized is that they are not in a normal theater, but are seated on one of Dynamic Attractions' latest flying and riding theaters. This is how it works. This mammoth 3-level structure connects all 3 floors and loads them onto a motion base of sorts. The motion base consists of 8 electric pistons per section. There are 2 per theater, with 2 at each corner for rigidity. This dynamic structure is secured by a large rail on each side, where the entire structure can move up and down freely thanks to various wheel assemblies. During the ride, the pistons also take each floor and tilt it forward and back, rotating about the middle of the theater. If the theater needs to tilt down, the forward pistons retract and the rear pistons can extend or stay where they are. To simulate a rise or drop, the pistons on both sides will extend up or fall by the same amount. To make the movements feel more natural, the base will combine these two actions along with tilting the seats left and right. If you have Venetian blinds and know how they move to block light, the structure moves in much the same way. The setup of the theater allows for up to 4 feet of up and down movement, creating the various drops. The ride takes advantage of the shifting perspective of riders by staying one step ahead. During climactic or calm scenes, the theater is slowly descending to set up for the next visual acceleration, where it will use its available headroom to simulate acceleration. The ride uses straddle-style seating that covers each rider's legs, as the seats tilt left and right during the experience to make sure each guest will feel the same amount of motion no matter where they are. In addition, there are pneumatic air bladders between the rider's legs. To simulate the living and breathing banshee, riders are made to feel they are flying on. The entire ride system is perfectly safe, featuring countless sensors to monitor the ride's behavior. If something is not right, the ride will automatically cease to avoid further issues. In the event of a power loss, the theaters will naturally return to their home position and allow riders to evacuate. However, this is not likely to happen, as the ride has its own substation to provide the massive amount of power the ride consumes. Flight of Passage lasts just under 5 minutes as guests link to the back of an Ecran on this 3D hyper-immersive flying adventure. Guests soar and dive through floating mountains and caves full of bioluminescent life. Once the ride is nearing the end, the theater begins to return to its homing position where it can physically lock with the rest of the static building and guests can unload. Altogether, this technology works in unison to create a seamless and thrilling adventure that has amazed and blown away millions of riders and will continue to do so for decades to come. I hope you've enjoyed this informational dive into the inner workings of Flight of Passage. We create these videos to showcase the awe-inspiring technology and engineering that goes into creating the rides we yell our heads off on daily. Thank you for joining us, and we hope we've inspired your curiosity through technology and engineering. Be sure to subscribe and check out the playlist of other How It Works videos in the iCard above, where you can find out how rides like Rise of the Resistance work. There's a lot of them. We make educational ride models that you can 3D print and build, the links for which are below. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at 𝗦𝗢𝗚.labs, where you can find more behind the scenes content and polls to decide our next How It Works video. Once again, thank you so much for watching and subscribing. Welcome to Coaster Labs, and I'll see you in the parks.